Welcome to Mindful with Mina, where we explore how mindfulness can enhance your relationships and well-being. I'm your host, Mina B, a licensed social worker, mental health educator, and author. Through insightful discussions, I will guide you towards self-awareness and self-efficacy, empowering you to effectively manage your relationships, reduce burnout, and be more present with yourself. So let's jump into today's episode. What's up, mindful community? For today, I am recording this episode because I'm secretly saying all of this stuff out loud because I need to hold myself accountable. And I want to share this with you all because maybe this will resonate with someone who is in the space that I currently am in. So I am in a space where I kind of feel like I have been underwater for a very, very long time. And I've been burnt out. I have been exhausted. I have been drained. And I finally feel like I am coming up for air, but I am still kind of gasping and I am trying to find my way out of the deep end of the water. And the only way for me to do that is to be very, very intentional with practicing self-care and self-nourishment and choosing myself and choosing joy. I have been in a chronic state of burnout for a couple of years now. I remember quitting my job in December 2020. And I was talking to my therapist about this during that year. And I remember telling her, listen, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to pursue self-employment and entrepreneurship full time. And because now I'm stepping into this new world, this new universe, and having a better sense of freedom, I'm going to make the choice to give myself permission to rest. And I had a whole list of things I was going to do. And y'all, I did none of those things. I literally quit my job in December 2020. And by January, I had signed with a literary agent. And within 6 months, I had gotten a book deal. And so the process of writing is so rigorous and it took so much out of me. It wasn't something that I thought was going to happen so fast for me. And so I went all of these years of working full time in various jobs. And then once I quit my job, I pretty much came self-employed, but I felt like I was working way harder and way more, but in a different capacity compared to when I was working full time. So I've been on my own as an entrepreneur basically since January of 2021. And I've just been going and going and going and going. And this fall that just passed, the fall of 2023, was just really, really hard for me, where I literally felt like I've been running and running and running. And then all of a sudden my knees buckled and I fell to the ground. I think that's the best metaphor to give, where it was just like, girl, you can't run anymore. You are exhausted. You are tired. And in order to get up, you are going to have to nourish yourself. You literally are going to have to breathe life back into these bones, because you are so heavy and burdened by so many things happening, both personally and professionally. And in the midst of giving and giving to work, giving to responsibilities, giving to people, you're not giving to yourself. And so today I want to talk about the power of self-nourishment, because I believe in the act of doing the things that we need to take care of our nervous system daily. When your body is in a state of burnout, you're basically in a freeze stress response, because your body is in such a state of chronic stress that you're almost frozen in a state of debilitation. And so one of the things that I am realizing as I continue to navigate this territory that I'm in is that in order for me to flourish, in order for me to live a soft life, in order for me to give myself the things that I know I need, I have to pause and I have to take a step back and take inventory of the ways I invest in people and the things around me, and how I really have not been investing in myself the way that I need to. I invest in my business. I invest in being a great aunt and a great godmother and a great daughter, a great friend. But I do think that one of the things I'm realizing is that I'm not really investing in being a better version of Mina. I'm not investing in the things Mina needs and recognizing on a personal level what's missing in your life and what are the things that you need to flourish and have joy. And so when I talk about self-nourishment, what I'm really talking about is nervous system regulation and choosing joy, choosing happiness, and also choosing pleasure. And the reason why I'm using the word choosing is because we have to make a choice to pursue the life that we want. We have to make a choice to give ourselves the life we think we deserve. I can sit on this mic and talk about how I deserve a life of ease. I deserve a life of joy. I deserve a life of happiness and to thrive and to just be overflowed with an abundance of happiness. But in the midst of saying I deserve those things, I have to pause and say, well, girl, are you working toward those things? Are you putting in the work to get the joy that you want to hold on to? Are you putting in the work to have the happy life you feel like you deserve? Are you putting in the work to have the soft life you say that you deserve? Those things are not just going to fall into your lap. You have to be willing to take inventory of the choices that you're making. And remember, doing nothing is also a choice. And this is me holding the mirror up and looking at myself and being honest and engaging in realism and being reflective enough to say, you have chosen the act of doing nothing. And now you are in a state where you are exhausted, you are burnt out. And when you are in this state of fatigue and just feeling empty and maybe feeling numb sometimes, what are you doing differently? Because the only way to get from point A to point B is to take action. You are not going to get on the other side of this by reflecting on it every single day, by complaining about your circumstances every day. You can acknowledge the hardships that you're facing and you can acknowledge what you're going through, but at some point, acknowledgement has to turn into action. And so I am on this journey of taking action to be better toward myself. I am on a journey of taking action and giving myself the life I feel I deserve. I want to take more action in pursuing joy. I want to take more action in stepping away from life being all about work because I don't want that to be my identity. And when you are self-employed, for those of you who relate, or sometimes even when you are working a full-time job, but depending on the position that you're in, especially when you're in a managerial position, when you have to make decisions and you have to lead people and things fall on you, and you always have to engage in an act of discernment to ensure the structure of the work environment is always flowing, it can be easy to get swallowed up in that and allow that to be your life. And then when it's time for you to take a step back from that, you're like, oh man, like I don't see myself doing anything other than working. And so I'm in this stage in my life right now where I am just trying to be more intentional about the choices that I'm making and how I am investing in myself and how I am practicing self-care. My belief in life is that self-care is a prevention strategy. It is not a crisis response. And what happens is when we are in a chronic state of burnout because we are experiencing so much stress and we are not erecting boundaries to do things differently and limit the amount of stress that we take on or limit the amount of tasks or things that we invite into our lives, when we just keep going and going and going, we don't realize that when your body is in a state of chronic nervous system dysregulation, Deciding in that moment, you know what, I'm going to choose joy, I'm going to do something differently for myself, can feel really, really hard because it was never a practice. So now you're trying to teach yourself how to swim, but you're already in 12 feet of water. And the only way to really learn how to swim is first you got to learn how to float, and you need to take baby steps, right? And so maybe you're going to learn how to float in 4 feet of water, and then you're going to gradually move up. But you can't say I'm going to teach myself how to swim by diving into 12 feet of water. You're most likely going to drown. And that is how I see self-care. Sometimes when we are in a state of crisis, we're saying, how can I learn to swim right now? And one of the practices that I think is essential is just saying to ourselves on a daily basis, what are the things that I need to be inviting into my life that is going to help me stay afloat so that I don't feel like I'm drowning? What are the things that I can invite into my life that is going to help my nervous system and the things that are going to help me thrive on a daily basis so that when I hit crisis mode, I already know the tools that are in my toolbox. I already know meditating gives me a sense of peace because I practice it daily. I don't wait until my body is in a state of shutdown. I don't wait until my body is frozen. I don't wait until my body is empty and depleted to now say, maybe I should practice meditation. Instead, I do this thing on a regular basis so that when my body is in shutdown mode, I already know, all right, I know how my body feels when I take a few deep breaths. I know how my body feels when I go to the gym because this is a part of my everyday practice. I work out consistently. I am disciplined. This is something that I do. So therefore, I know when I'm stressed, working out is such a huge stress reliever because I already do it on a daily basis. It is ingrained in my life, in my everyday way of being. I already know that some other self-regulation practices is when I journal. This is so cathartic for me. I don't wait until I'm in a state of crisis to do it. I'm doing it so regularly that when I am in a state of crisis, it's my go-to mechanism, and I know what is going to help calm me and bring me back to my center. So I'm sharing these practices with you in the midst of learning new self-care practices for myself, because another thing I believe is that sometimes we do outgrow our routines. Prior to the pandemic, I used to love journaling more so in the format of free flow writing, meaning I would just pick up my journal every morning and just write. And then when the pandemic hit, that shifted my life so severely. And the reason why is because prior to the pandemic, I was still working a full-time job. Like I said, I quit my job in December of 2020. And so I was working in an office setting. And I am the type of person who I personally believe that my home is a sacred spiritual environment. I believe my home is a space for rest. It is a space for ease. It's a space for softness, relaxation, connection with myself, connection with others. And I really believe in making my home a sacred environment that is about nourishing me from the inside out. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because when it was time to transition from the office to working from home, I struggled. I struggled so deeply because number one, I was like, well, I don't have a home office. Now I have to create a makeshift office in my home. And I did not like that because, for example, even right now, y'all, like my whole podcast setup, my work desk, everything is in like a corner in my living room. I don't have a separate space that I can say is my designated work office. And I really struggled with taking this corner out of my living room because I'm like, my living room has a purpose. My living room creates a space where I can find ease and relaxation and understand that there is a fine line between work and play. So 3 years later, now that I am self-employed, I will admit I still struggle with working from home. I am someone who has a big personality. I am an ambivert. And so I ebb and flow between introversion and extroversion. And honestly, I low key feel like most people do. But I'm going to talk about introversion and extroversion in a completely different episode. But the point that I'm making here is I truly believe that our social environments bring out a certain side of us. And there are going to be times where we need moments of rest, depending on how those social environments deplete us. And there are going to be times where social environments actually ignite a part of us that makes us want to engage in output, and it makes us want to pour out into the spaces that we're in, which leads to a greater sense of extroversion. And so for me, I again dibble in both, right? One minute I can be introverted depending on the social setting I'm in, and next minute I can be very extroverted. But when it comes to work, I like being around people. And I like camaraderie. And most importantly, though, I know that this office space is designated for a specific task. When I come home, I don't want those tasks to follow me. So I say all of this to say that when the pandemic hit, and it was just like, now you got to do this work from home, I was not happy about it at all. And then when I quit my job, I was just like, all right, girl, like this is it. Like now you're really home pretty much forever. And so there are times where for my own self-care, I have to be very intentional, and I have to say, you know what? You have been in a chronic state of burnout and stress because, girl, you've been sitting in the house for 4 days straight. And maybe you need to work at a coffee shop. Maybe you need to invite more play into your work schedule because you have the flexibility to do so. So, as an artist and as a creator and as a writer, maybe you need to mix things up. And so, one day you can work at the coffee shop, but maybe there needs to be a day where you go to a museum so that you can get inspiration because this helps you write and this helps you craft the work that you do. And so, a big part of self care, in my opinion, is learning to practice letting go. Because as we grow and as we evolve, the things that worked for us 5 years ago is going to look different now because I am not the Mina that I was in 2019. And I'm really not the Mina that I was in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And so I started off by saying before the pandemic, I used to be really big into free form writing where I could just pick up my journal and write. Now I am a huge fan of the 5 minute journal. I really do not have the time, the energy, or the desire to pick up my journal and just write and write and write. I don't want to do that anymore. But the 5 minute journal has been such a game changer for me because number one, it really does take 5 minutes of my time. But number two, I really love that it's instructional. And so it's a reflective journal that as soon as you open it, there are questions that you have to answer. And those questions help me define my day because those questions help me focus on what's going good in your life. You have so much time in your day to complain. After you write for the 5 minutes, I guarantee you're probably going to go complain about something. So for these 5 minutes, how can you just be intentional about focusing on how you want your day to look, about writing out some affirmations about where you are in this current space and time? And how can you just take this moment to reflect on what is going good? Because you have another 5, 6, 10 hours to complain if you want to. So how can you be intentional in choosing joy? And doing this 5 minute journal practice for me is me being intentional about choosing joy because it can be easy to get caught up on what's going wrong in life. And when I do this method of journaling, I'm forced to be reflective and say, you know what? I can spend the rest of my day complaining, but right now, I really need to take the time to be reflective and say, you know what? This is what's actually working. These are the things that I hoped for and I prayed for and I looked forward to, and they are here. I am living the life that I aspired to live 10 years ago. All of the work and the effort that I put in 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago, I am living that. And that to me is a huge part of caring for yourself because there are so many stressors out there that you cannot control. But I do believe that there is power in the things that we dwell on. There is power in what we give our attention to. And so for me in the morning, spending 5 minutes to just be reflective and say, this is what's going great in life. This is what's making me feel good in life. This is what's making me feel happy, helps to set the tone for the rest of my day. And so that is one thing that I am doing differently when it comes to practicing self-care and choosing joy and choosing something different, allowing myself to have something different and say, I never journaled like this before, but I don't want to do the thing that I did before because it's not working for me anymore. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel gratifying. And there may be a point in time where the 5-minute journal is no longer effective for me. And guess what? I can change my mind and I can try something new. So that is one way that I am practicing the act of self-care and self-nourishment. Another thing that I am being very intentional about is something that I call the 15-15 method. And what that is giving myself 15 minutes of intentional joy throughout the day, and then looking at my calendar and planning acts of joy within the next 15 days. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I truly believe that sometimes as people, we just allow life to happen to us instead of being intentional about how we live life. And so it's easy for me to wake up in the morning and say, I gotta check emails. I gotta work on this workshop this week. I have to create an episode for my next podcast. I have all of these things that I know I have to do. But if I keep waking up every day saying these are the things that demand my time, then I am going to continue to be drained and burnt out because I am not carving out moments for joy. Joy is a choice. You have to cultivate joy. And so what I've been doing is saying after spending 90 minutes on a task, I am going to follow up with 15 minutes of some sort of joyful activity. And I'm going to use discernment to say, how can I use those 15 minutes to nourish myself and care for myself and my well-being? So I'm not going to do 90 minutes of work and then spend the next 15 minutes scrolling on Instagram. There is nothing gratifying about that. It's just going to feel like 15 minutes of wasted time. But instead of doing that, I can pull out my walking pad and walk on that for 15 minutes, or I can go outside and walk my dog for 15 minutes. I can, do a 15-minute meditation. I can listen to music for 15 minutes, and I can do something during that time frame that actually takes me away from tasks that feel mundane or feel heavy or just feel rigorous. And I can use that 15 minutes to pour back into me before jumping back into another 90 minutes of work. Listening to this podcast is you doing something for yourself. Cooking a healthy and nourishing meal is you doing something for yourself. Taking the time to meditate and focus on what's good and journaling is you doing something for yourself. Going outside and putting your phone on do not disturb so that you can be one with nature and you can be present and you can ground yourself and hear the cars driving past you, hear the birds chirping, letting the sun touch your skin. That is you being intentional about practicing self-care. Everything doesn't have to be, well, I need a time to go to the spa, or I need time to carve out a 7-day vacation, or I need time to do this big extravagant thing. If you want to do those things, that's wonderful. But when you start telling yourself that the only way to care for your well-being is if you're always consuming, you're always spending, you are trying to run away from your home because you dislike your home, you need to say no. How How can I make my home environment a nourishing space so that I don't feel like I always have to run away? Right? This is your nervous system engaging in flight. I feel like I need to travel all the time and I need to go to the spa and I need to do all of these things outside of my home environment because my home is so chaotic and dysfunctional. Maybe you need to hire a cleaner because seeing the mess and seeing all of the things thrown around is so overwhelming for you, but you don't have the energy to do all that. Maybe you need to treat yourself to a cleaner. Maybe you need to spend a moment throughout your day and say, I'm going to focus on certain sections in my home. And instead of trying to clean everything, I'm going to start in the kitchen, then I'm going to move to my bedroom. These are simple practices that you can be doing. These are things that I have been teaching myself and inviting into my world so that I can be better and be proactive about what it looks like to care for my well-being on a daily basis. And then I take it a step further by looking at my calendar and making room for the other things that I may want to do. And so right now, to give y'all a glimpse of what my calendar looks like, by the time you all listen to this episode, my birthday would have already passed. So my birthday is on March 17th. And so I said, you know what, I'm doing things with my friends for my birthday, but I want to be intentional and I want to do something for myself. When I was in my 20s, I used to take myself on dates all the time. You couldn't tell me nothing. I would get up and I would travel. I wasn't even asking friends if they wanted to come with me certain places. I was booking flights by myself, taking myself to museums, taking myself to restaurants. I am so big on going out to eat alone. And I will be honest in saying, the older I got, the more tired I became, and I kind of abandoned that practice. I really stopped doing things for myself. So as a treat to myself for my birthday, I was just like, what do I want the next 15 days to look like? And so in the midst of me knowing I have things planned with my friends for my birthday weekend, I want to take myself out to eat and I want to take myself to the movies. And I want to do it alone. I'm not even asking anyone if they want to come because I want it to be just for me. And so that is something that I have added to my calendar. Another thing that I have added to my calendar is I want to take myself on a date to the museum. I haven't done that in so long. And so I'm currently being very intentional about being reflective and saying, what is the thing that I want? And am I willing to work toward it? Sometimes we will look at someone else's life, or we will just see certain things in life that looks beautiful and looks desirable, and we'll say, we want that. And you have to take inventory of yourself and your actions. And when you realize you are not putting any work into it, it's most likely because you want the solution without doing the work. You want to get to the finish line without having to run the race. And that's not possible. And sometimes we have to be real with ourselves and say, you know what? I want this thing, but I don't want to work for it. And I also need to be real with myself and recognize that because I'm not willing to do the work and I'm not willing to do the hard thing, the only person I can be upset with is me. And so I had to be very intentional. And I'm like, listen, I'm saying I want a better life. I'm saying, again, this is the life I believe I deserve, but I'm not putting in the effort to give it to myself. No one else is going to do it for me. I have to be willing to give it to myself. And so how can you look at your calendar and say, I have these major responsibilities in my life, and so I need to be effective with my planning? If I want to experience certain things, how can I plan for those things? If I know my work schedule is super rigorous, how can I engage in pre-care? To use myself for an example, when I know I have speaking engagements or if I have a project, like especially when I was writing my book, because I knew I had these really rigorous tasks in front of me, I said, okay, I want to do the work of caring for myself before I jump into this thing that is going to require heavy lifting. Because once something requires heavy lifting, that means it's going to use my time and it's going to be using my energy. And I may be depleted in the midst of doing this thing. thing. So how can I fill my cup up prior to engaging in this task? And that is what that pre-care process is all about, where I am being reflective and I am pouring and investing into myself before I have to pour into something else, before I have to pour into other people. And so one of the ways that I love to create boundaries around my time is to look at certain tasks and break them down into time demands, time assets, and time liabilities. And this is so essential for caring for ourselves because when we look at our time demands, these are non-negotiables. These are things that require my time, they require my energy. There's no way to work around that. And so, for example, when it comes to work, if your work schedule is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you already know you can't plan that museum date in the middle of a work day on a Wednesday. It's not going to happen. If you are a parent, you are with your children. Some are with their children every day, or maybe you're co-parenting, and so you have your children on a certain schedule. You know your schedule with your children. You know when your children need your time, and you know when you can be flexible with your time, maybe because the child is going to be with a different parent, or you have support systems where you can say the child is going to be with another family member or a babysitter. And so time demands, like I said, are our non-negotiables, and we need to be realistic about our non-negotiables. These are the things that we have to prioritize. And so you need to understand what your time demands are. The next two is your time assets and your time liabilities. And some of you might know where I'm going with this. Your time assets are the things that you're going to give your time to that's valuable and it's in alignment with your goals, needs, and desires. If I invest my time and energy into this thing, there is going to be a return on the investment. That is what a time asset is. And so when you know that you're busy and you know you have a lot going on and you have a lot of responsibilities, it is essential for you to know what a time asset is. If I give my time to this phone call, if I give my time to this dinner date, if I give my time to having people come over and spend time with me at my home, if I give time to this thing, is there going to be a return? Or am I going to be depleted? Am I going to feel numb? Am I going to feel empty? Is giving time to this thing going to divert me from the thing that I am trying to pursue? Because if I know that this Saturday I really, really want to spend time with my children, or this Saturday I really want to spend time with my friends or my partner, what is the thing that's going to come in that might divert me from that plan? And can I say no to that thing? Because that thing might now be a liability. So a time liability is the things that we give our time to that can be detrimental to our mental health or our well-being, or it diverts us away from our goals. And so it is essential for you to start doing the work of recognizing that if you want to take care of yourself, if you want to effectively manage burnout, if you want to choose joy, you got to cultivate it, and you got to pay attention to the things that's taking up space in your life and recognize when you need to let go of them or set limits and boundaries with those things. And the best way to do that is to recognize, are these things that I'm giving my time and attention and energy to an asset to my well-being and my life, or is it going to be a liability? And so I am going to leave y'all with that. I want you to do the work of remembering that you deserve to take care of yourself. I want you to do the work of checking in with yourself and saying, how can I work toward giving myself the things that I need in order to flourish? That's all for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you just listened to, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast on your preferred platform. Also, don't forget to share it with a friend and on social media. To stay connected with me and my work, follow me on social media and subscribe to the Mindful with Mina newsletter, which can be found on my website, www.minab.com. You can also continue learning from me by ordering my book, Owning Our Struggles, which is available at all major book retailers. Stay tuned for a new episode next week, and most importantly, remember to be present and stay mindful. Take care and goodbye for now.